Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in life when the world's telling you to slow down, sit back, and stay in your comfort zone. At 70, people expect you to fold into a routine. Safe, predictable, and still. Society begins to whisper, "You've done enough. Travel is for the young," or "It's too risky now." But I'm here to challenge that voice. Because the truth is this: if you ignore travel after 70, you're not just skipping a trip. You're skipping memories. You're skipping growth. You're skipping a part of yourself that still craves to see, feel, and to live. Travel isn't just about planes, trains, or suitcases. It's about feeding the soul. And at 70, that hunger doesn't die, it deepens. Let's talk about why ignoring travel after 70 can be one of the greatest mistakes we make in our golden years. Before we begin, if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any video. Number 1. You miss out on mental and emotional renewal. When you choose to ignore travel after the age of 70, one of the greatest losses you may face is the chance for mental and emotional renewal. As we age, many people assume that the mind begins to fade, that emotional richness starts to dim, and that the desire for newness evaporates. But this assumption is deeply flawed. In reality, the mind and heart still yearn for stimulation, meaning, and connection. Perhaps now more than ever. Travel at any age isn't just a leisure activity, it's nourishment for the soul and a spark for the intellect. When you decide not to travel in your later years, you're not simply staying at home. You are missing out on a profound opportunity to revitalize your inner world. The human brain craves novelty. It thrives on new experiences, sights, smells, and challenges. After 70, when life often settles into predictable rhythms, this craving doesn't disappear. It just gets quieter, easier to ignore. But deep inside, the mind still hungers for moments that shake it awake. Traveling provides that. The simple act of navigating a new place, learning to say thank you in another language, finding your way around a different city, observing unfamiliar customs. These all stimulate parts of the brain that might have been dormant for years. Neural connections that haven't been used in a while get fired up again. You become more alert, more curious, more alive. When you travel, your senses reawaken. The aroma of spices in a foreign market, the rhythm of waves crashing on a distant shore, the soft murmur of conversations in a language you don't understand. These sensations ground you in the present moment. And being present is one of the most powerful tools for mental health. It pushes out anxiety about the future, quiets the regrets of the past, and forces you to truly live in the now. For someone over 70, that kind of mindfulness can be deeply healing. It's a reminder that life is still happening, still rich with experience, and still worth being part of. Emotionally, travel can be just as powerful. Many people in their later years experience loneliness, isolation, or a sense that their days of excitement are over. These feelings can quietly steal joy from everyday life. But stepping out of your usual surroundings can restore emotional vibrancy. You meet people with different perspectives, different ways of living, and different stories to tell. And in those interactions, you find connection, not just with them, but with parts of yourself you may have forgotten. Maybe you remember your youthful spontaneity. Maybe you rediscover your sense of humor, your flexibility, or your patience. These emotional discoveries remind you that you haven't become smaller with age. You've only become deeper. Another often overlooked aspect of travel is how it gives you emotional permission to be someone new. At home, people often see you a certain way: the elder, the parent, the retiree, the grandparent. These roles, while honorable, can become limiting. But when you travel, especially in places where no one knows you, you are free to be just yourself. Not someone's mother or grandfather. Just a person exploring the world. That emotional freedom can be liberating. It reaffirms your individuality and reminds you that your identity is still evolving, still full of potential, still beautifully alive. Moreover, the travel provides something incredibly precious: awe. Whether you're standing in front of a towering mountain, walking through an ancient ruin, or watching the sun rise over a foreign horizon, awe changes you. It humbles you. It lifts your spirit. It reminds you that the world is vast, mysterious, and magnificent, and that you're still a part of it. That sense of wonder is a balm for emotional fatigue. It washes away the dullness that routine sometimes brings and replaces it with a quiet joy, a spark of inspiration, and a deep appreciation for being alive. And let's not forget the memories. At 70 and beyond, memories become our wealth. When you travel, you create new ones. Vivid, colorful moments that stay with you. The laughter shared on a boat ride, the taste of an unfamiliar dish, the peaceful silence of a mountain path. These memories don't just fill photo albums, they fill your heart. They become stories to share, reminders of bravery, proof that your journey didn't end with retirement. They are emotional treasures you carry long after the suitcase is unpacked. Some might argue that travel at this age is too difficult, too tiring, too unpredictable. But those very challenges are often what make it so rewarding. Pushing past those limits and discovering that you can still do it builds emotional strength. It tells your mind that it's still sharp, your heart that it's still open, and your spirit that it's still adventurous. That sense of renewal doesn't come from ease. It comes from the courage to step outside what's comfortable and embrace something new. When you ignore travel after 70, you're not preserving yourself. You're slowly letting parts of yourself fade away. You're missing the joy of new encounters, the stimulation of the unknown, and the deep satisfaction that comes from stretching beyond the familiar. The mind needs more than medication to stay healthy. It needs movement, challenge, and beauty. The heart needs more than memories. It needs new moments, new meanings, and new emotions. You may not climb Everest or back across continents, but even a quiet village, a weekend in a nearby town, or a slow river cruise can breathe life back into the corners of your mind and heart. You don't have to go far. You just have to go. Because mental and emotional renewal doesn't come with age. It comes with action. And as long as you're still here, you're still capable of growing, discovering, and feeling deeply. So don't ignore the call to travel just because the candles on your birthday cake are growing. Listen instead to the deeper voice within, the one that knows you're not done yet. That voice is calling for renewal, for wonder, for life. And travel may be the very path that leads you back to it. Number 2, you deny yourself the joy of connection. When you choose not to travel after 70, one of the most significant losses is the joy of connection. Connection with others, with the world around you, and even with yourself. As we age, our social circles often shrink. Children grow up and move away. Old friends pass on or become distant. Days become more repetitive and routines more isolating. Without realizing it, we can begin to lose that spark that comes from interacting with different people and experiencing new environments. Travel, at any age, acts as a bridge. It connects you back to life in its fullest form. It brings you into contact with new faces, unfamiliar cultures, shared laughter, and unexpected moments of understanding. When you ignore travel, you deny yourself these rich and healing connections. Human beings are wired for connection. It is not a luxury, it is a need. We thrive when we feel seen, heard, and understood. Yet, in older age, many people find themselves feeling invisible. The world around them becomes faster, louder, and more digital. They feel left behind, but stepping into a different place. A new city, a small village, a cruise, or even a family trip immediately repositions you within the stream of human experience. You're no longer watching life go by from the sidelines. You're in it, part of it, and your presence matters. Travel puts you in situations where conversations happen naturally, sitting next to someone on a train, sharing a meal in a local cafe, asking for directions from a stranger. These may seem like small moments, but they carry deep emotional value. Each interaction reminds you that kindness is universal, that laughter is contagious in every language, and that human beings, no matter their culture, age, or background, share the same need for warmth, respect, and companionship. You realize that connection doesn't always require deep familiarity. Sometimes, a simple exchange with a stranger can make your day. It can leave a lasting impression that lingers long after the journey ends. Even more valuable is the connection travel can bring with your loved ones. Many families today are spread across cities and even countries. Regular life rarely offers in time to truly connect. Travel changes that. When you embark on a trip with your children, grandchildren, or close friends, you're creating space for deeper bonding. Away from daily distractions, the focus shifts to being together, talking, exploring, and sharing experiences. These moments can repair old wounds, rekindle lost closeness, and create new layers of understanding. A walk through a historic site with your grandchild, or a quiet breakfast with your son in a mountain cabin can strengthen emotional ties in ways that everyday phone calls or weekend visits rarely do. Beyond others, travel helps you reconnect with yourself. In the day-to-day pace of life, especially in retirement, it's easy to lose sight of who you are beyond your responsibilities. You become the person who used to work, who raised a family, who paid the bills and took care of others. But when those roles begin to fade, many people struggle with identity. Travel offers the chance to meet yourself again. It reveals your preferences, your resilience, your ability to adapt, and your capacity for joy. When you're navigating a new city, trying a new dish, or watching a sunset in a place you've never been, you're reminded of your aliveness. You feel curious again, engaged. You feel whole. Connection also means seeing the world through new eyes. Visiting a new culture can open your heart in unexpected ways. It invites empathy, compassion, and a deep appreciation for differences. You start to see how other people live. With less, with more, with struggle, with celebration. These insights shift your own perspective. They dissolve assumptions and soften judgment. And in doing so, they deepen your humanity. You come home not just with photos, but with a wider heart. It's not just about big international adventures either. Connection can happen during small getaways, a trip to a coastal town, a visit to a nearby national park, or a road trip with a group of friends. The point isn't the distance. The point is movement. Motion invites emotion. New experiences awaken the inside you that too much routine puts to sleep. And once it awakens, it becomes easier to maintain. You return to your everyday life with stories to tell, people to call, memories to hold, and an outlook that has been refreshed by contact with something beyond your front door. When travel is avoided after 70, the walls around you start to close in. Isolation can become your companion, and loneliness can take root slowly, quietly. You may not even notice its grip until the joy of living begins to dull. But connection breathes light into those dark corners. It reminds you that the world is not done with you. There are people who want to meet you, places that want to welcome you, and parts of your spirit that still want to be expressed. The greatest connections are not always planned. Some of the most beautiful moments happen unexpectedly. A shared umbrella with a stranger in the rain, a conversation with a hotel staff member about their hometown, a group of fellow travelers who invite you to join their table. These are the connections that stitch together a sense of belonging, not only to a place but to the world itself. Choosing to travel after 70 is not about proving anything. It's about allowing yourself the chance to feel alive, loved, understood, and part of something larger than your immediate surroundings. You're not too old to connect. You're not too late to explore. You're just right for exactly the kind of moments that make life feel meaningful again. So when the opportunity comes, whether it's an invitation from family, a spontaneous road trip, or a destination you've always dreamed of, don't ignore it. Say yes, pack your bag, step into the world, and rediscover the joy of connection. Cued, the kind that reminds you that you're never too old to matter, to belong, or to truly live. Number 3, you let fear make your decisions. When you avoid travel after the age of 70, more often than not, it isn't your body stopping you, it's your fear. And when fear becomes the loudest voice in the room, it begins to shape your choices. It convinces you that discomfort is danger, that uncertainty is risk, and that staying where you are is the only safe option left. But the truth is, when fear makes your decisions, you don't just miss out on experiences, you begin to shrink your world. Slowly, without realizing it, you start saying no to things that once brought you joy, excitement, and growth. You stop stepping forward, and instead you stand still in a life that could still be moving. Fear after 70 can wear many disguises. Sometimes it comes as worry about health. What if I get sick while traveling? Other times, it's a concern about energy. What if I can't keep up? Or it might even be embarrassment. What if I look out of place or people think I'm too old to be here? These thoughts feel valid. They even feel protective. But more often, they're not protecting you. They're limiting you. They are quietly building a cage out of what ifs, convincing you to stay inside even when the door is wide open. There's a quiet tragedy in letting fear steer your choices. It robs you of your power. It replaces your sense of curiosity with caution, your adventurous spirit with anxiety. It tells you, you can't, before you even try. And the more you listen to it, the more you start to believe that your best days are behind you. That the chapter of discovery, of exploration, of surprises, is over. But that's not the truth. The only thing that's really changed is the narrative you've chosen to believe. Because courage isn't something that belongs only to the young. In fact, true courage often blooms in later years, after life has tested you, stretched you, and taught you what truly matters. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward anyway. When you choose to travel, despite your worries, you're not being reckless. You're being brave. You're showing yourself and the world that your story isn't over, that your spirit is still strong, and that fear will not be the author of your final chapters. It's important to recognize that many fears people about travel after 70 can be addressed. You don't have to climb mountains or backpack across countries. You can travel in comfort, at your own pace, with proper planning and support. There are senior-friendly tours, accessible hotels, and medical precautions you can take. You can bring a companion, use travel insurance, and stay connected with family. Modern travel is more accommodating than ever, and with just a bit of preparation, many of the fears you carry can be eased. But the first step is deciding that fear will not be your guide. Fear often exaggerates the worst possible outcomes, but rarely considers the best ones. It tells you everything that might go wrong, but never reminds you what might go right. What if you experience a new kind of peace while walking along a quiet beach at sunrise? What if you meet someone who changes the way you see the world? What if you find a piece of yourself in a place you've never been? These moments are just as real as the worries. But you'll only find them if you're willing to take the first step. When fear is in control, life gets smaller. The walls of your comfort zone close in. Days start to feel the same. You convince yourself you're content, but often what you're feeling is safety mistaken for satisfaction. Travel has a unique way of shaking you out of that haze. It invites you to remember what it feels like to be surprised, to be delighted, to be challenged in a good way. This stage brings even something as simple as navigating an airport again, trying a dish you've never heard of, or watching people live a completely different lifestyle. It wakes you up from the numbness that routine often brings. Fear is not just a feeling. It's a decision maker, if you let it be. But you can choose differently. You can recognize fear, acknowledge it, and still move forward. You can say, yes, I'm nervous, but I won't let that stop me. You can take one small trip, maybe just a weekend away, maybe just a visit to a town nearby. You don't have to leap, you can walk. But what matters is that you're moving, that you're choosing faith in life over fear of it. And when you do that, something incredible happens. Confidence returns. Your self-image starts to shift. You don't feel like someone who's winding down. You feel like someone who's still writing their story. You begin to trust your instincts again. You begin to realize that age hasn't robbed you of your ability to grow. It has simply given you more wisdom to do so wisely. When you look back at your life, the things you'll regret won't be the careful, quiet days. They'll be the moments you were too afraid to chase. The dreams you thought were too late. The adventures you talked yourself out of. Don't let fear be the reason you miss out on the beauty still waiting for you. Don't let it close the door on a world that still wants to show you something new. Travel is more than movement. It's a declaration. A declaration that you still believe in possibilities. That you still want to feel awe. That you still have stories to create and memories to collect. Fear may never fully go away, but neither will your capacity for wonder, joy, and connection unless you silence them with hesitation. So choose to act. Choose to explore. Choose to believe in what's still out there for you. Because fear will always knock. But it's up to you whether you open the door or walk right past it and into the adventure that still belongs to you. Number 4. You rob yourself of the legacy of experience. When you choose not to travel after the age of 70, you may think you're just avoiding the hassle, the planning, or the discomfort. But what you're truly doing is robbing yourself of the legacy of experience. And that legacy is far more important than people often realize. It's not just about collecting passport stamps or kicking destinations off a list. It's about creating stories, moments, and lessons that outlive you. It's about showing future generations what it means to stay curious, to keep growing, and to embrace life, even in its later chapters. When you stop experiencing, you stop leaving behind the kind of wisdom that only real living can create. Every chapter of life has something to teach, and after 70, your experiences carry even more depth. You've lived long enough to understand what truly matters. You've faced challenges, endured loss, and learned resilience. When you travel at this stage, You don't just look at monuments. You feel their weight. You don't just try new food. You savor it with appreciation. You don't just meet people. You connect with through the lens of everything you've seen and survived. These are the kinds of experiences that become stories worth passing down. Your grandchildren may not remember every conversation you had with them, but they will remember the time you shared with them in new places. They will remember the courage it took for you to step onto a plane when others said you were too old. They will remember your stories of walking through ancient cities, of laughing in foreign cafes, of marveling at new worlds. These are the kinds of memories that inspire, that shape how they view aging, and that leave an imprint far than anything material. Travel gives you something real to pass on. Not just advice, but perspective. Imagine being able to tell your family what it felt like to stand before the pyramids in Egypt, or how peaceful it was watching the sunset from a hilltop in Tuscany. These aren't just moments. They're emotional heirlooms. They're pieces of your soul that others can carry long after you're gone. And when you choose not to travel, you deny yourself and your loved ones those treasures. It's easy to think that by staying home, by keeping things simple, you're being practical. And in some ways, that's true. But if you let practicality keep from meaningful experiences, you start to lose the richness of life. Experience isn't just for the young. It doesn't expire. In fact, it often means more when you're older, because you bring a lifetime of meaning to each new moment. A walk through a foreign market isn't just about shopping. It's a reminder of how different and beautiful the world is. A conversation with someone from another culture isn't just small talk. It's a window into a life you might never have known. These small, layered experiences are what build a legacy of understanding and wisdom. When you share these experiences, you do more than tell stories. You pass on courage. You show others that life doesn't stop at retirement. That adventure doesn't belong only to the young. That you can still say yes to wonder. Every time you take a step outside your comfort zone, you become an example. You show that learning never ends. You remind others that it's not age that limits us. It's the mindset that comes with it. And what greater legacy can you leave behind than the example of living fully, right up until the end? Moreover, traveling in your later years changes the way you view your own life. It gives you the opportunity to reflect not just on where you've been, but on where you are now. You begin to see how far you've come, how much you've overcome, and how beautifully complex your life has been. These reflections bring peace. They offer healing. They help you find closure where needed and appreciation where it's long overdue. And those emotional revelations aren't just personal. They're part of what you leave behind. They shape your character in a way that others remember. They shape the stories told about you long after you're gone. The world is full of wisdom, waiting to be gathered. And when you choose not to explore it, you let that wisdom go untapped. You let those moments of connection, of awe, of transformation slip through your fingers. And with them, you lose opportunities to add richness to your personal story. One that could have served as a light for others. Travel doesn't have to be extravagant to be meaningful. It can be a road trip to a place you've never seen, a visit to a relative in another city, or a journey to a place you dreamed of in your youth. What matters is not the destination, but the willingness to step into new experiences. What matters is the courage to keep living with intention, with passion, and with open arms. That courage leaves behind something far more powerful than material possessions. It leaves behind the energy of someone who never stopped growing. If you let fear, convenience, or other people's opinions stop you from traveling after 70, you may think you're playing it safe. But in truth, you're playing small in the final, most meaningful stretch of life. And that choice robs you of the ability to influence future generations not just with your words, but with your example. It robs you of the chance to show others what a life lived really looks like, even at 70, 80, or beyond. Your legacy is not just what you've done. It's what you continue to do. It's the life you still choose to live. Don't let it end in a whisper of routine. Let it end in a roar of stories, of journeys, of connections that stretched across countries and hearts. Because in the end, it won't be the comforts you clung to that people remember. It will be the experiences you embraced, the places you dared to go, and the spirit which you lived, until the very last chapter. So, if you're over 70 and think travel isn't for you anymore, think again. Don't let the calendar dictate your courage. Don't let caution replace your curiosity. Ignore travel, and you may find yourself surrounded by walls that grow tighter each year. But embrace it, and the world opens up. Still full of wonder, still full of life, still full of you. Travel is not just for the young. It's for the young at heart. And if your heart is still beating, it's still capable of adventure. Thank you